Welcome to What Your Pastor Really Thinks, where we talk about topics about faith, culture, and theology that maybe isn't talked about on the pulpit. Today, we're talking about gambling. The Super Bowl is one of the heaviest gambled events, and that's coming up. And we're excited to put our money on the wait. No, hold on. So, Drew, I bet we're going to get you gambling by the end of the podcast. Pastor Drew there in forefront.
Oh man, yeah. Let's wait. Let's hold off judgment to the very end.
Hey, I bet I'll get you gambling. I bet I will. Pastor Ryan McBride at Catalyst Church in Canyon City. How you doing, sir?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Good to be back.
Pastor Matt Wolf in Denver at Arise Church. Welcome on.
That's right. I'm going all in on the Broncos. I think they're going to take it this year.
Hey, the best part is we even recorded this after they're eliminated. That's the best part.
Yeah.
That's the inside
Come on,
joke.
man.
You might want to check the scoreboard, fellas.
That's the best part of this. If you have questions, thoughts, throw them in the comments. Let us know what you think. We want to hear your thoughts on what we're saying. Are we close? Are we off? Did we miss something that you wanted to hear about? Let us know. But today we're talking about gambling. What's the Bible say about gambling? As a Christian, is it smart money to put money on the Chiefs for the Super Bowl? Like, what's the inside track here? What side is God on? If both teams are praying, who's winning, right? How's that work? Pastor Matt Wolf, what are your thoughts on gambling?
I mean, besides the fact that the Broncos are God's team because we're in God's country, and the Chiefs are Satan's team. Sorry, Drew. I can't believe you root for the Chiefs here in Denver. But yeah, gambling is an interesting topic. I mean, I think right now coming into the Super Bowl, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are going to be this year, but in 2024, 68 million Americans bet on the Super Bowl. 68 million Americans. And they bet in total $23.1 billion. And I know that number is going to go up because if you look over the last 5 years in our country, gambling just keeps going up and up and up, from under $1 billion in total gambling in 2019 to almost $11 billion in 2023 when the last numbers I saw were recorded. So it's just going up, like by crazy amounts since it's been legalized, since it's on apps in people's pockets all the time. I mean, you can bet on anything. People were betting on the election. People are, betting on the color of the Gatorade that's going to be spilled on the winning coach, the winning team's coach. So betting is everywhere, and it's tough because it's like, well, what does the Bible say about gambling? It used to just be like the old school thing. It was like, don't gamble, it's a sin. But then it's like, oh, let's look a little closer. We've talked about that already in this podcast. Hey, there's some gray areas. There's things like alcohol. And, that's one in particular that we talked about, that it's like, well, what does the Bible say? It's not as clear cut as traditionalists would like us to think. And I think that's the reason why we should take a little bit closer look, because there actually isn't one single verse, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, one single verse that directly says gamble or don't gamble. So I think it's good for us to think about. There are some verses I'm sure that we're going to talk about today that apply indirectly to this, but there's nothing that says it. So like the question I think we're all wondering, like, is it okay to gamble? Should I jump in with these 68 million Americans? How much? And what are we talking about? So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as well, Drew and Ryan.
Pastor Ryan McBride, what are your thoughts on gambling?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Matt. I think this crosses over to a certain extent into that, that liberties, type of a thing that we have. There's some freedom there. I know people who, they just like to have fun here and there. Maybe they go to, where we're at here in Canyon City, Cripple Creek is really close. I know guys who like to go up to Cripple Creek once a year. I know guys who like to go up to Cripple Creek once a week, right? Or more. And so I think there's a disparity in there a little bit, but I think it's one of those self-control issues to a certain extent, like I said. And I'm excited to talk more about this because I think that there's some things that are like at the heart of the issue when it comes to gambling, and it gets to a point where maybe it's become an issue that you need to pay attention to. So I think this will be a great conversation for that.
I need to correct myself. Those numbers I gave you earlier, don't make any sense, because if Americans wagered $23.1 billion on the Super Bowl, they wagered more than $11 billion in the year. So the numbers I was giving you were from the American Gambling Association, and that's gross revenue. So that's like how much people are making off gambling. But in reality, in 2023, there was almost $120 billion gambled in America.
Wow.
Man.
So Pastor Drew, how big does the Super Bowl or mega have to get before you buy a lotto ticket?
It's a tempting thing when you drive by and the billboard says it's $1 billion. It's interesting, this topic on gambling, because it is a gray area. I'll have people at our church who will say, hey, Drew, I put $5 on this team or whatever, or they'll be like, hey, pastor, I did this, that, and the other. And it's almost like they're looking to me just to give them a nod that that's okay, because there really isn't clear guidance. We've got this old school view that gambling is as bad as drinking and chewing tobacco and dancing and playing cards. So don't do any of it, because it's going to open the gates to terrible sin. But yeah, gambling isn't talked about in scripture. And so as we think about, it's one of those gray area things. And I think it comes down to the heart attitude. When it comes to, control, Ryan, you nailed it. Self-control is key. It's a heart attitude thing, right? 1 Timothy chapter 6, Paul tells Timothy in his letter, he says, those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. And so we see scripture talk about how, the root of all evil is a love of money. And so how greed can grab a hold of your heart. And so we just say, well, don't gamble, because we know the examples of people who have gambled and have lost everything.
Yeah.
But again, that's really kind of an exception versus the rule, right? Like, what's the rule when it comes to entertainment and those kind of things? It's guard your heart. And so if you're gambling, if you're throwing $5 on the Chiefs game because it's fun and it keeps you engaged in the game, that's different than spending all night at the craps table hoping that you can make your rent for the month. So I think, it comes down to what's going on under the surface.
No, absolutely. Pastor Matt, just, I had a really interesting parlay earlier this year. I was at my old youth pastor's wedding, and I went to my wife. I go, I bet in the sermon they're going to use Genesis 2. I bet my old youth pastor, the father of the bride, is going to cry. And I bet the first dance for the father of the bride and his daughter is going to be a Justin Bieber song. If all those three hit, that was a pretty good parlay I had right there.
If all those hit, man, you're going to go
Did you win?
To the buffet
They
line.
used Genesis 2, but it was a Justin Bieber song. So
That's pretty good with the Biebs.
It's pretty good.
A good parlay is tempting. I want to throw another category on there. I don't think it's just about guarding the heart. The Bible does talk about, hey, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this sin, or is this okay? But there's a whole nother layer in there. And I like to say, like, it might not be sin, but it's stupid. And it's just the idea of wisdom. And there's in the Proverbs, it talks about this. Proverbs 13 and 11, I think, is one of the key verses when it comes to gambling. It says in the NLT, wealth from get-rich-quick schemes disappears. It quickly disappears. Wealth from hard work grows over time. So there's a basic principle of wise people that if you're just trying to make your money like that super quick, it's going to disappear just as quick. However, if you build it up slowly over time through hard work, through investment, it actually is going to grow. And I think that's so important. Like, it might not be sinful to bet, but you even just buying a lotto ticket daily, like, you're eating away a ton of money. I've heard economists say that a daily lotto ticket is the dumb tax. It's literally the tax on dumb people. Now, I'm not calling anybody dumb, because I know a lot of people I love, friends and family members, who buy those lotto tickets. But just know, like, hey, you are, in a sense, paying this dumb tax, because if you did win the lotto, or you do win big by, putting $15,000 on the over, it's like you could make a ton of money, but then even if you get it, it's going to be gone just as quick. And I've seen this too much that it's just on. So it's like a wisdom question. Is this wise? And how much money? I've known guys who want to be wise about it and smart. And so they'll say, hey, I have a gambling budget. I budget, $100 a month. Or, hey, I'm going to Vegas, so I got $2,000 set aside because, hey, I'm going on vacation. I'd spend $2,000 if I was in Mexico. going on tours and drinks and food. So, hey, here's my $2,000 Vegas budget. And so they're being wise about it, knowing, hey, this is just entertainment. And if I lose $2,000, that's fine. If I gain some money, hey, even better. I paid for the next vacation. But when you go there and then it's like tied to your credit card, which is what everybody wants to do on those apps now, and it's all the time with you, it's just like you don't even realize. And then you get to the end of the year and boom, so much is gone. And you guys have probably seen this. I just dealt with the case with a family falling apart, being destroyed because someone secretly gambled away tens and over $100,000, and it ruins families. In fact, in Proverbs 15:27, it literally says the greedy bring ruin to their households. If you're trying to make money quick or even pay off the debt which you lost, and you're like, oh, but double or nothing because I can win back the money I just lost. We do this kind of thing, and man, it ruins our families. So I think this takes a lot of caution, because it might not be sin, but it might just be stupid.
Yeah, and I want to throw in on that too. I think when we talked about alcohol a few episodes ago, and we talk about gambling, it's the recognition that as people, we're broken, right? Sin has broken us, and so we fall into addiction. And so if you are somebody who knows that addiction is something that you struggle with, that it doesn't matter what it is, you tend to get in these ruts. Gambling is one of those things that pulls you in because you get that dopamine hit. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be exciting. The next thing you know, you're falling into a trap. So I just think wisdom is right. It comes down to wisdom. But at the end of the day, you have to learn and know yourself. And if it's for you, if you know, man, I'm going to be tempted to fall into this, I got to stay away.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thought you said with the dopamine. There's actually studies out there where the close loss of something big has a bigger dopamine hit than actually winning big or just losing a little. It's like if you're like, oh, I almost won that $1 billion lotto, that dopamine hit is bigger to keep to coming back. So Pastor Ryan, the odds are always with the house. So how do you advise when you see people struggling with this or talking to you about gambling or how they do it? Is there they do the same thing to you with Drew, where it's like they're just trying to see if you give you a little bit of approval, get the pastor head nod, like.
I think this. So the conversation then shifts away from because I agree with Matt and what you were saying, and we talked on one of our previous shows about Paul saying, hey, all things are permissible, not everything is beneficial, right? You can do this. Can you do this? If there's self-control, sure, you have that liberty. Is it beneficial? Probably not. Again, the odds are with the house. So not great odds. So, but I think this is where, with your question, the conversation kind of shifts to, okay, for those who maybe this is a problem, like this is an issue. What's some reasons for that? What's some wise advice for that? Godly advice for that? I think it's important to get it in your mind and seed it in your heart that this comes down to, like really at its most basic form, this is a Mark 12 issue. This is a love your neighbor as yourself type of an issue, in a certain sense, right? Because the truth is that like gambling, it's predicated on loss and pain and the suffering of others. That at its core, that's what gambling is about, right? Gambling also exploits and preys on the desperation of the poor. Matt, you were talking about, the lotto tickets and some of the stuff. It's very interesting. One study I found said that this is the Gambling Impact Study Commission, and they found that those with incomes of less than $10,000 spend more on lottery tickets than any other group. Which is just incredible. So now you're placing all of your hope, and you have this need in that gamble, get hitting the jackpot or whatever. And the problem with that is, the other issue we could easily talk about here is idolatry. If it's wanting anything more than you want God, desiring anything more than you desire Christ being enough for you. And I think that the real challenge with this issue is it crosses over very quickly because there's something silly about the green stuff, man, that it gets a lot of times the full attention and affection of our hearts. So we have to be very careful.
So, Pastor Matt, if someone said, "Hey, I just won a lot of money on a lotto or a gambling trip," and they wrote their tithe check, would you take the money?
Hell yes. I'll take it. I'm joking with the hell word, but I would take it because it's income, and if that's how you want to make income, there are people that do this professionally. I think it's kind of a dangerous profession to get in because I remember hearing a podcast interview with one professional gambler, and he was making money because he won 55% of his bets. And this guy studied it. He used statistics. He had algorithms that he had created to help him. And he would win 55%, meaning he barely won more than half of his bets. And so he just squeaks by in that margin. So if he's doing that, like he's thought about it, he has the algorithms, he can see what's going on. So there's something about making money that way. And, in a sense, there's a lot of gambling when it comes to the business world. We just don't actually call it gambling. It's more just like guessing on the market and stock trading and all different things. So, income is income. I just want to encourage people to go back to that wise thing. Like, is this wise? Is this the best thing that I should do? And just really think about it. I want to go back to something that Drew said at the very beginning, because a lot of people I have found that when I've talked with about gambling, especially now on the apps, because it's so pervasive, it's legal, it's everywhere. They're just like, yeah, it makes the games more exciting, more interested and more invested. And I've been trying to put myself in the framework of that because I don't watch as much sports as I used to. Since having kids, I just haven't had the time. I'm a lead pastor, busy. I don't have the time to follow sports as much. Like I used to know the lines of the games, and I would joke with the guys about the over-unders in church. And now I'm like, I don't have time to do it. And so I'm like, okay, I still have my teams. I like to watch the Broncos. And when I watch them, I'm like, it's exciting. I mean, these games are exciting. They have the new camera angles. It's incredible. 4K. Why do we need to make it more exciting? Some are like, well, but I'm just not invested in that game. Well, then why the hell are you watching it? And that, I mean to use that word this time, because if you're not that interested in the game, don't watch the game. We have way better things to do with our lives than put, dumb money on cricket games. You don't need to. Just like, and this goes back to that family thing. If you're married and have kids, you got bigger priorities than finding little bets on tiny games. Watch the games that you actually like, that are actually exciting, and they should be exciting as is. Like, we don't need to keep boosting up this, because really it's just that I don't even know all the chemicals, the cortisol level. Like, our stress is out the roof because we're waiting like this, it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to win this bet? It's like, man, you're killing yourself and your family. Yeah. Just take it easy. Watch the games you actually do like.
Pastor Drew, with in gambling being in a gray area, how would you help someone find where they maybe have crossing the gray area? Like, how do you know when it's crossing the line with your life?
I think this is where the biblical principle of stewardship comes in. Because I think when we think of gambling, truly, we have to recognize that, hey, it could be fun. Like Matt said, you're engaging with the game or whatever. It keeps you connected with sports. But when it comes to where it's more than just a little tie into entertainment, I mean, when you look at the amount of money that people spend and lose gambling, it becomes a huge stewardship issue. The National Council on Problem Gambling estimates Americans lose over $100 billion gambling a year. That's how much they lose. And it said that in the U.S. alone, estimated $7 billion a year is lost by families because of people who get caught into the addiction of gambling. They lose jobs. They have to claim bankruptcy. There's lawyer costs. And so, truth be told, how do you steward what God has given you well when you allow yourself to just get taken away by gambling? And so it again comes back to this idea of what's grabbing your heart. And so that's the gray area that we have to wrestle with. Is all things are permissible. God gives us the ability to do some things and have some fun and enjoy his creation. But when it grabs our heart, that's when we're in a danger zone. And so I think that's the importance of having accountability, having people in your life who I can say, hey, Matt, Ryan, I'm tempted to do this. What should I do? And then we could speak wisdom into each other's lives. So if somebody listen to this, if you have a challenge with gambling, like you get excited about gambling, dopamine hits you hard, right? Either way, when you win or almost win, you need an accountability person in your life who you can go, hey, man, if I put more than $15 on this game or whatever, then I'm going to tell you about it, and so having those checks and balances in our life, they really put up rumble strips that'll keep us from going off the road.
I want to stack just really briefly on something, because Drew, I'm really glad that you brought this into the realm of stewardship. Craig Groeschel talks about this difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. That when you have aligned your heart with the Lord and what He has called us to do and how He has called us to be generous with our resources, and not just our resources in all kinds of different ways, but particularly with our resources, right? Like when you are following the Lord's leading on that, you can't help but have like this. I think the goal is like this abundance mindset where it's like, okay, if God calls me to give 10% to the church, to the ministry, to the work of the Lord, and there's still plenty with the 90%. There's more than enough with the 90%. The scarcity mindset is, oh my gosh, I got to keep it all to myself because there's no way I can only do this on 90%. And so it's, I couldn't give away, a slice of the pie because there's not enough left for me. The truth is there's, 9/10 of the pie left for you. That's plenty, and so, but he talks about this scarcity mindset. And I think that that's a particular challenge too, when we get into this, again, talking about preying on loss and pain and suffering and risk. I think a lot of it boils down to potentially, if this is an addiction issue, is there's a scarcity mindset that there's just not ever enough. And I got to get more. I got to chase that and get it if I can. So anyway, that's all to do with stewardship and resources. And so I'm glad you pulled it into that realm.
And if you're having issues with gambling and you don't have anyone directly to talk to, there's the National Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-GAMBLER. So feel free to reach out to there as well. That's not attached to us. What we do is just a national resource for those that have issues with gambling, that you may not have someone in your community to hold you accountable. You just need, what's the next step? So that might be a good first step for you if that's an issue you're facing. And when I think of like an issue with something, whether it's gambling, drinking, or something like that, we always talk about those gray areas. I always think, like, how does it affect your tasks of daily living? Does it affect you going to work? Does it affect you how you love your spouse, your family? That's probably where you draw, like, hey, you know what? I'm not like, I think Pastor Matt, you said it well, where, hey, are you spending time with your family? What are you spending? What are you valuing more with your time? And if you're seeing your priorities getting out of line because of whether it's gambling, drinking, I know some people that have issues with even working out. They have to work out. If they don't work out, and they sacrifice their family time to go work out, where it seems very healthy to go do, but actually could be an addiction as well. Like, so how do you guys help people with addiction? And we go down that road, Pastor Matt. Like, it's a big, sticky subject, but how do you help people on that initial step to even identifying the addiction?
Yeah, so I would say if you're like, hey, it's not a problem, but you're doing it all the time, you're lying to yourself. There's so many people that are in denial about addictions, even gambling. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Well, have you actually tracked how much money you're spending or how much time you're spending on this? Do that for a month. And if you think, oh, this might be a problem, it probably is a problem. If you are starting to rack up credit card debt or draining your retirement funds, it's a problem. And you need to get some help. Find someone to talk to. Sin thrives in silence. And when it's hidden, it just grows worse and worse. You need some help. Call that gambling hotline. Talk to your pastor. Talk to a Christian friend. Say, hey, I think this might be a problem. I need some help. There are Gamblers Anonymous groups that you can go to, which is great to have other people with no judgment who say, hey, I want to help you. And so just reach out, find some help. And, if sin thrives in silence and darkness, it actually dies when it comes to light. And we need to walk in the light as He is in the light. And, it's just such a better route to go.
Pastor Drew Tarwater, parting thoughts as we talk about gambling.
Yeah, just remember that anything we do in life isn't just isolated to us. I know we hit on that a little bit earlier, but it talks about gambling addiction. A lot of studies show that 6 to 10 people in your life are negatively affected when we become a gambler, and especially our kids. If as dads, we're talking a lot about betting and such. I mean, studies show that 60 to 80% of teenagers have gambled at some point. and that, 4 to 6% of them are already addicted as teenagers. And so, man, we're setting an example for our kids. And if we're talking about how we put $10 on this game and we went to the casino that night, our kids are hearing those things. And the people in our lives are hearing those things. So we just got to remember that our stuff isn't limited to us. It spills into the lives of the people that we do life with.
Pastor Ryan McBride, parting thoughts as we talk about gambling.
Yeah, to give it a soft landing, a light landing, if you will, I'll just say this. If you really want to just give your money away, we will gladly take that. God would love to use you in that way. It would be a blessing to us as a portable church as we look to go permanent. So you're always welcome just to, instead of burning your money, just give it to the Lord and through Catalyst
Amen.
Church. Or
Amen.
Arise Church or Forefront Church or whatever. So anyway,
Pastor Matt, I think we should start like a church betting app for about how long sermons go. What color tie does the pastor wear? Is he wearing a hoodie today? I mean, what are the odds on all that? I think we could
It's going to a good cause.
Brick and mortar of Catalyst
right.
Church in Canyon City.
what I'm talking
Yeah, as
about.
long as we're the house, I think that's good. The house always wins.
House of the Lord, baby.
So,
Amen.
parting thoughts, Pastor Matt Wolf.
Yeah, I would just say this. If you're like, but man, it makes it so much fun. I'm excited about this Super Bowl. Think about this. You would have just as much fun if you did a bet like, hey, if my team wins, then, I will, go outside in the snow without my shirt on, or make the person who loses do something crazy like that. You can do crazy bets that cost very little money, film it, put it on Instagram, it'll go viral. Like, it's way more fun than losing all your money. There's fun ways to bet on these kind of things without losing your family's inheritance.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the big thing where people think the Christian community is just a stick in the mud when it comes to fun. But there's other ways to have fun. And like I said, if this is something you're struggling with, reach out to your pastor, reach out to someone in your community, or if you don't have anyone in your, direct network, 1-800-GAMBLER, reach out, get the resources you need to take the next steps. And, it's a silly gray area in life, and people always want to make it black and white. But I appreciate your guys' insight on this today, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks,
How
bud.
about this? If your team wins, you bet a buddy, and then they have to wear the opposing team's jersey to church the next week and yell like "Go Chiefs" in the middle of the sermon, like that. That would be a good way.
I'll
to
make that bet right
pretty
now,
good.
fellas.
By the end of the podcast, let's go. So, guys, thank you so much. Looking forward to the next one. Appreciate all your guys' insight. If you listen to this, you got questions, comments, put them in the comments. So whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen, send us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from them. If you don't want it to be public, you can email. It'll be in the description, but you can just email me directly, Rob@Simpler. That's Rob@sympler.com. And if you need some help, we'll gladly point you in the right direction that we can. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.